Some say music and time are the two most healing things to exist in life. Many believe the phrase time heals all wounds. There are certain people who want to share life in all of its glory with everyone. In Brian's case, he chooses to spread his love of life through music and tarot cards. Joining Dan, me, for BS Sessions Volume 56 is Brian Orlando from 94.3 The Shark, a local radio station here on Long Island, New York. But before I begin the show, here's a reminder that this show is sadly not free. So time for some ads. This show ain't free, so time for some ads.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
This is Han Solo, and I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours right here on the Midnight Shift.
It's time to BS.
Joining me for Volume 56 of BS Sessions from 94.3 The Shark, Orlando himself. Dude, what's up?
Not much, brother. You got me up early on a Saturday, and I appreciate that because I didn't realize how much life there is in Huntington in December on a Saturday.
Really? I mean, I've been to Huntington a few times. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a frequent visitor of the Huntington area, but you're at the Paramount you mentioned before.
I'm near it. I'm just kind of hanging out, and it's just an easy place to go. There's a coffee shop nearby. There's always life. If I'm hungry for something, every type of food is right up on, along New York Ave. So it's just a convenient spot to be in to do something like this. Thanks for having me on, bro.
Appreciate you coming on, dude. I mean, I told people that I was like, yeah, dude, I'm getting the morning radio host for the Shark on. It was like, holy crap, really? It's like, yeah, because I mean, before I got into podcasting, I was going to get into radio. That was one of my career choices I was going to do before I ultimately chose what I'm doing now, which is, I'm a welder, but the radio bit.
I promise you made the right move. You have a trade, which will probably never not be in demand. So congratulations on being smarter than the rest of us.
Stop it, you. I mean, but your love of music is very evident when you go on the broadcast. One of the things I wanted to talk with you about was the Choose Song Challenge that you did, that you and a few people started several years ago. For those that are not familiar with that challenge, what can you tell us about it, dude?
Well, it was just a way to get people to not only talk about music, but recognize that music is a healer and music is a bridge and a communicator of its own. So if you have somebody doing a quick video going, this is my favorite song that gets me through a bad time, and this is why. I Just Called to Say I Love You will make me smile every time because it was my grandmother's favorite song, and she used to sing it to me when I was a child, to the point that we played it at her funeral, and every time it comes on the radio, I know that she's with me. So if you see me scrolling through your phone talking about that, and you realize that you have your own either memory or experience with I Just Called to Say I Love You, or a different song with your own grandmother, you realize how much we have in common, and it gets you to start thinking. And you do it.
Oh, yeah.
Say, hey, this is my favorite song. And the next thing you know, people just realize that they're not nearly as alone as they thought they were, because there are strangers out there that share that love of the same song, of the same music, of their family, whatever it is. But we all have that common connection, and music is just a phenomenal way to explain it.
Music they say music and time are the greatest healers ever. Like, I remember when my dog passed on my this is some years ago, but I remember going down to a beach right down where I was living at the time back in Blue Point, which we'll get to that also. And the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen. And his favorite song, I kid you not, was Government Mule's cover of the Allman Brothers' Soul Shot from the mid-90s. He loved it. And he would always sit down when I would play that song. He would just lay down and just listen. And man, and I have Soul Shine tattooed on my wrist. It's mirrored right now, but like, because you could see a little bit. But
what type of dog was he?
He was a multi-poo. He was a Maltese Poodle mix. Small little guy, but he was snug as a bug. He was a great dog, man. But I mean, I got a cat now, but I mean, me and my fiance got 3 cats, so it's what are you gonna do? But
it's funny that you mentioned the Allman Brothers Soul Shine, because we talk about connection, and I'm sitting in a room where upstairs from me, I just saw the Allman Brothers Friends and Family Revival back on Sunday. And on that same album, back where it all began, that Soul Shine is on, there's a song called No One to Run With. And they did it. And that's a song that reminds me of my father, who's still here, but we had gone 7 years without speaking. And we just started talking again last year. And when they did No One to Run With, I immediately thought of him. And to think that on that same album is a song that automatically, immediately connects you to a loved one is what the beauty of music is all about. And then we could sit and talk about the album and all the songs, and it's cool.
Music's a wonderful thing. I mean, music really is wonderful. I mean, I remember seeing Government Mule forever ago at the Great South Bay Music Festival over in Patchogue, Long Island. And they came out for an encore, and the encore was Soul Shine. And you could feel it was indescribable how amazing that felt.
It's a beautiful song, man.
It really is.
Was that about 2 years ago that you saw that?
No, I think it was 2018.
Okay.
It was before COVID. I want to say it was before the pandemic hit.
Government Mule had just played, or at least Warren Haynes did, the Great South Bay Music Festival a few years ago. And Dave Matthews, who I'm not a fan of, but
yeah,
you know, women will make you do strange things, and going to the Dave Matthews concert is one of them. So I'm standing there and I'm like, isn't Government Mule playing down the road tomorrow? And sure enough, Warren Haynes came out, and I thought they were just going to do that Cortez the Killer jam that they're known for. And they broke out into Melissa.
Nice.
And for 5 minutes, Dave Matthews had a bearable moment at his concert, and it was phenomenal.
That is awesome. What is if you had to go back, and this is a very difficult question, but if you had to go back to your favorite concert that you've ever been to, that you could sit down and truly speak to someone and say, that's my favorite concert and here's why.
Well, that's impossible. But since I'm sitting below one of my favorite venues, there are 2 that definitely stand out. One is Candlebox, April of 2019. Everything in my life was falling apart at the time. I had just gotten out of a marriage, and I was moving, and things were going on at work, and there was all kinds of shifts happening. But the guys in Candlebox have always been a big part of my life, even before I'd known them. And then once I got into radio, the members of the band and I became close, and we have a great work relationship. And Kevin, the lead singer, has become a phenomenal friend. And I just remember, while all this chaos was going on, Kevin and the band came down, did a private concert for our listeners, did everything that a radio station used to bring listeners closer to, and then played one of the best concerts I ever saw, did all my favorite songs. And I thought, no matter what's going on in my life, I will always have this music. And this music is now friends of mine. So it was a reminder that no matter what decisions I made, the fact that I got into radio will always be one of the best ones and will always have brought me to experiences that I could never have had without it. And I'm standing there with my arms on the stage, listening to Kevin break out to Cover Me, which is a song that one of my all-time best friends who passed away used to play all the time. And I happened to be standing next to that friend's cousin, and we got to see it together. So for healing purposes and emotional purposes, Candlebox 2019, one of the best. But then there was a show called Kings of Chaos.
Okay.
Chester Bennington, 6 months before we lost him. And he was in the studio. Matt Sorum from Guns N' Roses, Robin Zander of Cheap Trick, Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top, Billy Duffy of The Cult.
Wow.
TP, and they all sang each other's songs. Like, just for the sheer amount of hits, you can't beat that show.
That's awesome.
Like, you know, you come out and you hear Sharp Dressed Man, you hear Surrender, I Want You to Want Me. Chester did that Stone Temple Pilot songs. I mean, it was insane.
That is awesome. I mean, getting into radio, it must be so fulfilling for you when you look back at your career and you get to see all of these great artists. You mentioned Chester Bennington of Linkin Park. May he rest in peace. Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top, Guns N' Roses, Cars, Candlebox. I'm sure Creed, Pearl Jam, all these bands from the last 40 plus years, you can look back and you go, man, I've had it good. But how'd you get started into radio? Because that's concerning what we're doing right now, podcasting. Radio is still a big part of, media. But as of the last 15 plus years, it's sort of been deteriorated a little bit. And that's unfortunately sad to say.
It's a misconception that it's deteriorated. And the biggest example that I can give you that it is a misconception is because during the pandemic, everybody had to get rid of disposable income. We all had to sacrifice things. A lot of people weren't working, and even those that were working at a minimum level. Like, there were no appearances, there were no endorsements, nothing was happening. So most people at the time, not making nearly as much money, were getting rid of disposable income. One of the first things that I saw go was satellite, was subscription radio and things that weren't necessary. Radio is free. Radio will always be free. And I cannot tell you how many times I have heard radio's dead, nobody listens to it anymore. And then that same person will proceed to tell me 9 things that I've said in the past week, why I said it, why it made them either angry or happy or everything in between. And if radio is so dead, why are you listening?
Precisely the point.
And again, I think that we're inherently lazy. And I don't say that to be derogatory. When we're getting ready to go to work in the morning, when we're getting ready to get through our day to the best of our abilities, the easiest thing to do once you turn that ignition over is to push one button and the radio comes on.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to connect. You don't have to think. If you find a radio station that does what you want it to do, it will play enough of the music that you want where you don't have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you find a sports station that talks about the teams that you like, then you can just sit there mindlessly and let somebody else yell about the things you want to, but you have to get to work. So you constantly hear, radio's dead. But I honestly believe that a big reason for that is because there's so much other media out there, so many other different types of ways to do things. Yeah, that I believe a lot of people want radio to be dead. I believe a lot of people would be convenienced if radio is dead. But
nope.
I don't think personally, and I could be biased, but I don't think personally it's a medium. Look, they said the same thing about TV. They said the same thing about, back in the day, TV is going to kill radio. Now that we have TV, it's going to kill radio. But even now you can put TVs in cars. You still have to drive. Everybody else can watch a TV in the car, but you still have to drive.
That's a good analogy to think about when you think about it. It really is. I mean, music and radio go hand in hand. It really does. And there's a lot of inspiration that can come from radio. There's a lot of inspiration that can come through music and sports talk and the whole 9 yards. And when you turn on the radio, even when you're just sitting on a beach in Blue Point, Long Island, New York, which I didn't know until 20 minutes ago that you were from there. I had no idea you were born in Blue Point. No idea until 20 minutes ago. So
I was baptized at Our Lady Snow.
We're gonna have a great conversation. We're gonna have a great time. I can sit at a Blue Point fishing pier, right down the road of Blue Point Avenue, and I could sit there and look at the water, just turn on the radio, turn on a Bluetooth speaker, play some music, and just kick back and relax with a cigar and a breakfast sandwich, and just kick back and enjoy life. And it feels like that in today's world. From the 20,000-foot view, it may seem differently, but from a 20-foot view, it seems like a lot of people aren't enjoying life, just learning to enjoy life. That feeling doesn't seem to exist from a 20-foot view. Now, 20,000-foot view, different.
I've heard songs for the first time there. I remember, your friends. We would gather there. When you face the Blue Point fishing pier, to the right is that small private beach that nobody knows about.
Yep.
And if anybody is watching that doesn't know about the beach, it's terrible, it's awful, don't go there. But no, it's one of the most coolest, serene places on earth. And I remember sitting with my friends in the middle of the night with the radio, sitting around it, hearing new music for the first time, because at 2 a.m, they don't care what they play. So it's one of those, the beach is definitely one of those places where you could find discovery, whether it's about yourself, whether it's about people watching, whether it's about, music, because you got your radio next to you. It's, to me, one of the best things that we have on this island is the fact that we're by water and there's beaches everywhere.
Oh, yeah. My fiance doesn't get it. She goes, why you just go to the beach all the time? I go, you ever just sat out there on the water in your car or on the dock at 5 o'clock in the morning? Nothing's out there.
Yeah.
The water's flat. The sun is just getting up and it's quiet. And you just have your thoughts to yourself.
Do you know anything? And I think about this a lot when I'm there because it baffles me. When you're driving down Blue Point Avenue, the last house on the left before you get into the parking lot is this tiny looking house.
Yes, I've talked to her about this, and she goes, how high do you think the taxes are in that house? I go, I don't want to know, and nor do I care.
Because I don't think I could turn sideways in that house, but it's oceanside or waterfront or whatever you call it. I'm like, that house still has to be at least $500,000, if not more.
Has to be. One of the great mysteries of living here, or of living in that area, is who lives there.
Yeah, I want to know who lives there. If anybody can answer this, it would be one of the greatest mysteries in the world unlocked. And I don't think I have to think about anything again for the rest of my life.
I just don't need to think about anything else. Just who lives in that house? Who lives there?
It is, for anyone who doesn't know it, when I say it's the size of a broom closet, it's not an exaggeration. It is the most narrow. It's tall, but it's narrow.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It's like
Does someone rent it? Does someone rent the house for the summer and then sell it up for the winter and like the fall or whatever? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you live in that house? How?
Yeah, it's definitely a Long Island thing. But.
Oh my God. Like, people don't understand. It's like, yeah, you live in a tiny ass house in the middle of Blue Point, Long Island. It's just a closet. Oh my God. It's unbelievable. I mean, What was your growing up, being born in Blue Point and being from that area? There are certain parts of that area that you can go drive through, and that each area tells its own story. It really does, doesn't it?
Sayville at Christmas time is probably one of the most beautiful sights that you can experience. And it's right on the road. You just, from Blue Point, you just head west a little bit, and all of a sudden there's a line, and it turns into this winter wonderland because they have the garland stretched across the street on both sides of the telephone poles. And right, it's a bell, it's a snowflake, it's like each strand of garland has like its own symbol in the middle. And at least that's the way it was when I was a kid. I don't know if it's still the same, but a few years ago it seemed that way. And as a child, there was this little makeshift, it was almost like the size of like 2 porta potties put together. And it was draped in garland. Now, this might be before your time. You would go up a little staircase and Santa would be in there. And you'd sit on his lap and you'd tell him everything you want. And I still never got the Air Jammer Volkswagen or the G.I. Joe Hovercraft. So there's that. But it was just a part of the experience in Sayville. Santa was just on the side of Montauk Highway. And it was like his house.
Awesome. Sayville to me, if anyone says that, like, yeah, Sayville has nothing to do, they're lying. They're absolutely lying. There's stuff to do. I remember there was a comic book store right down Railroad Avenue. I believe it's still there. I'm not 100% sure, or they moved.
There was a guy named, I think his name was Tim, and he was south of Montauk Highway. As a matter of fact, and Jesus Christ, I just realized this now. I teach a tarot card class at Moonspell Garden in Sayville.
We'll get to that, definitely.
But that room was the comic book store.
Wow.
Just remember that now. If you just go north on Railroad, which becomes Lakeland, on the right is a comic book store now, and it's a great place, and those guys are really nice. But holy crap, the comic book store my mother took me to as a kid.
Wow.
Is Moonspell Garden. But yeah, you're right. They're lying. There's a million things to do there. You got 2 Italian ice places. You've got tons of restaurants.
A $5 ticket for movies?
There's that movie theater is awesome. The Sayville movie theater.
Thank you. You're on. Thank you. She called. We went to go see. What did we go see? I think it was Moana 2. And she goes, this movie theater is a little sticky. I go, that's the point.
Yep.
That's the point.
Yep.
It's $7 a ticket. You get jumbo popcorn and a large drink, free refills on both of them. It's awesome. You can't have that anymore.
It feels like it did when you were a kid. And most of Sayville is still set up that way. There really aren't a lot of corporate stores. Almost everything is mom and pop. You have Hammer and Stain, where you could do it yourself hobbies, woodworking and painting and things like that.
Yeah.
You've got the 2 shoe stores. There's Stride Right, and then there's the running store.
Yep.
Where they actually still have the metal measurement for your foot.
Wow.
You stick your foot in that giant contraption. There are elements to places like Blue Point and Sayville that you're not going to get. I mean, even here in Huntington, it's very mom and pop oriented, but it's also very city-like, where Sayville and Blue Point are still very suburban.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love that, though.
For a Suffolk County kid, that's what I want.
That's it. There's nothing better than that. Yep. It really isn't. And I got a few friends that live out of state. A couple of them live in Virginia. Like some of them live in upstate New York, and then there's one that lives in around the Boston area, Massachusetts. I got my Boston friend, and she asked, "Hey, when I eventually come to visit you on Long Island, what do I do?" I say, "Do not, for the love of God, go to this city. Stay on the island, and if you want to go explore around the island, let me take you places, because I can take you to so many good spots that most people barely know about that are from here."
mean, George Washington stayed at a couple of
Yep.
historic buildings right on the South Shore. He stayed at a bunch on the North Shore too. But a big reason why we don't have British accents is because of the events that happened on Long Island. A lot of Revolutionary War history, a lot of growth and a lot of innovation happened right out here. I mean, what's his name? Tesla has his
Nikolai Tesla, yeah.
he has his whatever it was, like a place to experiment, his studio in Shoreham. Like a lot of innovation happening.
It's the history here is so deep. Long Island's rich in history, and I know you're a Rangers guy, but like I'm an Islander fan through and through. But like the fishing culture, awesome. It goes way deep.
Well, fishing,
pun intended.
Great, but the Islanders swung and missed at that stupid fisherman logo. I get it.
Oh
that
my
they
God.
wanted to showcase more of their Long Island roots, but that wasn't the way to do it. Like there was nothing wrong with the symbol of Long Island being their symbol. Why they went to the Gordon's Fisherman, I have no idea. But that was a bad idea.
Why do you think it's tattooed on my bicep, my man?
My Rangers tattoo is on my legs, and nobody wants me to pull my pants down. So
That's fantastic.
what is that?
I mean, I got for football, I got the Seahawks on the other bicep. So, I mean, I purposely did it that way so I can, show both teams my biceps. Why not? Just pull my shirt up. What are you gonna do? But going back to Blue Point, I mean, man, there's so many stories I want to tell. But if you go south of Montauk Highway on Middle Road, there's this little private beach. If you go further down, like where is it? There was this mansion that like lived not too far from my house back home.
Yeah, I was just there not that long ago. I can't think of the name of it, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
There's a marine, the Sayville Yacht Club. It's right where the Sayville Yacht Club is. And if you go north and then make a left, and then you go further south, there's a little beach that's right next to some marshlands.
Yep.
And some of my favorite pictures I take are from that beach. And why do you take pictures of the beach? Because you just sit back and you listen to the waves and you feel the wind blow. There's something about it that just it grabs a hold of your heart, squeezes it tight, and doesn't let go in a good way.
You feel better. It's healing.
It is. Same thing with music. Music and nature, music and the beach to me is like that's if I could die right now. Well, you know what I mean. If I died right now, or if I was on the verge of death, and say, what are some things you cherish the most? The beach, my lovely soon-to-be wife, music. That's it. 3 things right there.
Did you ever hear of the See Here Now festival?
Maybe. It sounds a little familiar.
It's in Asbury Park. Bruce Springsteen played it one year. That was the year I really wanted to go. But there's always a major headliner. Pearl Jam did it. Green Day did it. And it's on the Jersey Shore boardwalk in Asbury Park.
Wow.
And the stage is set up with the waves behind it.
That's awesome.
So everything that you need in life is right there at that festival. This September, you should check it out.
That's beautiful. Oh,
I think they do.
Gave me a good idea. Pearl Jam's a band I really want to see live. That's on my bucket list to see live is Pearl Jam.
Because of the songs that they do or because of the concert experience? You just want to...
Probably because the song, probably both, honestly. There's this one specific song that they played at Wrigley Field back in 2018 release, and the crowd just sings along to it. And it's such a healing experience. It hits you in ways when the crowd just sings along with that song. It's like, man, I want to experience that crap, man.
It's a beautiful song. The problem with Pearl Jam, well, I have plenty of problems with Pearl Jam, but the biggest problem with Pearl Jam is that they are notorious for playing obscure songs to the point where they lose the audience. I saw them do 41 songs in Philly Halloween night.
Wow.
2009. It was the final night of the Philadelphia Spectrum, and they did 7 hits.
Wow.
I mean, there were people falling asleep on each other. There were people like living in the bathroom because it was so boring. It was just laborious. There's no other way to put it. If you're a diehard Pearl Jam fan, then maybe you want to see Eddie Vedder play an accordion and sing a song about bugs. But I don't. I want to sing Even Flow and go home.
I can't disagree with you on that part. I can't disagree with you. I mean, there's a few concerts I really want to go see. I mean, Metallica was one of them, but I'd be completely okay if I don't see another concert after the next one I go see. I mean, my fiance, she's a Jonas Brothers fan, and she's been taking me to 3 concerts like during the entire time we've been seeing each other. Please laugh; it's hysterical. But
like I said before, women make you do strange things.
You literally, right? What are you gonna do?
I saw Britney Spears because of a woman once at the Nassau Coliseum. That was horrible.
Oh my god! I bet. I can't stand her.
2002.
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah.
Jeez. Music. I make this running joke, and I say the early 2000s and the entirety of the 90s was the last great era of consistently great music. Please tell me how I'm wrong.
No, I won't. I mean, the 90s were the last full music movement. I mean, look, at the very end of the 80s, things got so decadent and it got watered down. I mean, there were a couple of bands in the 80s that really could have made it if they weren't marketed as hair bands. I mean, Skid Row came out in 1989. They were a legit metal band, but had they just come out a few years earlier, they might have survived. But by 1989, most people were already tired of that kind of music.
Def Leppard.
91. I mean, Def Leppard, they tried to make it as an alternative band, and it was atrocious. The only band that ever lived through all of that was AC/DC. AC/DC was always unapologetically AC/DC, but most hair metal bands fell by the wayside. And again, the theory is grunge killed metal, but I think hair metal killed hair metal because they were putting out stuff like Trickster and Britney Fox, and that wasn't Def Leppard. That wasn't.
It's all the same.
Well, they were watered down versions of the bands that were popular, and I think the first ever grunge band was Guns N' Roses, because while Poison was singing about having a good time and Def Leppard was, pouring sugar on you, Guns N' Roses comes out and says, "You're gonna die. You're in the jungle, baby." I mean, that was grunge. And Duff McKagan, their bass player, was from Seattle, so there were a lot of those darker elements that became the Northwest Explosion in Guns N' Roses music. So I think grunge always would have been a thing, but if hair metal didn't put out such nonsense in the end,
I won't argue.
It became uncool. And then the stuff that came before it became uncool by default, by association. But in the 90s, you had economic prosperity. Things were looking up. As far as the economy goes, we had that recession that everybody forgets about in 1992. And then all of a sudden we were doing okay, leading into the dot-com bubble and all of that. But yet the youth, the kids were sick and tired of being told that they were okay. There was a lot going on. Like, okay, your bank account's doing well and your 401k is doing all right. But what about us not being listened to? What about our problems consistently being brushed under the rug? And the music of the early 90s showcased that angst, that there was a lot going on at home that we weren't allowed to talk about. We were sick of being silent about it. And that's what the grunge movement did. It gave an entire generation a voice that didn't necessarily have one. Because look, in the 80s, it was shut up and be quiet. Everything's fine. And we were sick of being told that. And as much as I'm not a Nirvana fan, when Smells Like Teen Spirit came out, you understood immediately how sick and tired we were of being told that everything was okay.
Music is a message.
Yeah.
It really is. And I'm not a big Nirvana guy either, but there was a few of their songs I could go back and say, you know what? They're not bad. I mean, Smells Like Teen Spirit was a perfect example. And there's a reason why it was so popular, because it was a big message to what they were doing.
I think that, I mean, the funny thing is, the title of that song has to do with deodorant, but you didn't have, people love to say nothing sounded like that before. That's nonsense. It's basically More Than a Feeling, the song by Boston with distortion. That's all it was. But
Yeah.
as far as the attitude behind it, you didn't dare to sound that angry in the mainstream.
Nope.
Thrash metal music, Metallica wasn't played on the radio back then. Music that was dark and angry. Even the darkest music that was popular was pop music. Leader of the Pack, the guy dies on a motorcycle crash, but they dressed it up in this poppy, I met him at a candy store, to the point where you're oblivious to the lyrics. Smells Like Teen Spirit and Even Flow and Man in the Box, they dare to sound angry in the mainstream, and that's what made them so powerful.
Which was a dangerous game back in the day.
Yeah.
It was a dangerous game.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't dare, like, Rage Against the Machine, the title of their band, right there. Says right there. And then you got the early 2000s, which it started to seem a little bit more relaxed, would the term be? I mean, you could tell more than I can.
Well, I mean, there was another music movement. Grunge probably died in 1995. The final nail in the coffin was the Grammy Awards. Eddie Vedder gets on stage with your typical anti-rock star stuff, and he's like, I don't think this award means anything. I don't even know why I'm here. It's all been done before, but my dad would have liked it. That's why I'm here. And it was like, you know what? You're full of crap. If you didn't want to go, you wouldn't have went. So stop with this. I don't want to be a rock star crap. And to me, by that point, we lost Kurt. Lane, for all intents and purposes, was lost. Soundgarden was about to break up.
Yup.
And, Pearl Jam were going through this phase where they didn't want to be commercial anymore. And that was the end of that. But then you had all this post-grunge music, Bush and Verve Pipe and
Creed.
Creed came out, and they didn't do it on purpose at all. And Scott Stapp's one of the most beautiful human beings. So is Mark Tremonti. They're amazing guys. But Creed was so polished that people said, oh, we can get this music all over the radio. And that was pretty much the end of rock and roll in the mainstream for a while.
Oh, that stunk
it
too.
lasted until the early 2000s, and bands like Creed survived. But, I mean, if you look at what was being played on the radio back then outside of K-Rock, Jewel was on the rock charts. Eagle Eye Cherry was on the rock charts. Duncan Sheet, that was considered rock back then.
Yeah, which
Sweet.
It stunk. It stunk. It really did. Compared,
it was like 97, 98. I saw them with Fuel and Finger 11 at the Roseland. And was it Roseland or Irving Plaza? It was Roseland. And it was still fresh and brand new. And there was this buzz of excitement in the air. And then once they got played, once Arms Wide Open hit the radio, that was pretty much it for a while.
Oh, it stunk because I love their stuff. I'm a psycho. I loved Creed.
Well, it's all cyclical because they just played Jones Beach in July and it was sold out, and there was 16,000 people singing every word to every song. And I think we, as adults now, are sick and tired of being told what's cool and what's not cool. I mean, nerds are cool. You didn't talk about comic books in the 80s. Marvel movies were the biggest thing in the world for a while now. Being a nerd is cool again. And what's uncool is cool to enough people, thank God for the internet, that everybody has its own group. And we don't give a crap if you make fun of me for liking Creed again, because there's enough of us that are going to show up at Jones Beach and sing along.
I have this analogy that I like to tell people every now and then. It goes, why do you give a crap about how other people think of you when you don't even know what you think of yourself?
Yeah.
Because everything's objectified. Everything's opinion based. You go on Twitter and you say someone that says, I like pancakes, and then they come after them and say, I like waffles. What are you going to do about it?
Comment section.
Number one rule of the internet. Stay out of the comment section. I can't help but be a wise ass every now and then, especially with wrestling Twitter. Good God, it's terrifying.
Yeah, wrestling fans are a dedicated bunch. I mean, music fans are the same way. I think that's why I've been a wrestling fan for most of my life, because the passion is very similar to the passion of a dedicated fan of any band.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just no room for a different opinion. I didn't like that match. You're an idiot. You know nothing about wrestling. How dare you? It's like,
do you want to hear my favorite comeback I've ever done?
Yeah.
At a wrestling fan? They say like, no, this wrestler sucks. They're boring. My response, so go book the show.
Look,
that's it.
I stopped watching wrestling a few years ago. It finally lost me, but I had a good run with it. I had 30 years of being a wrestling fan and meeting all those guys. It's no longer for me, but thanks to the magic of videotape, I could still watch all the stuff that I enjoyed back in the day. Now it's for a different generation. You watch it, go ahead, brother. It's
what are you gonna do, right? Who's your favorite? If you, out of all the wrestlers you've met, I'm gonna guess you've met quite a few in your time. Who is your favorite one that you want to sit down and go, I want to hear some stories from you? Mine would be Mick Foley.
So we had Mick come up to the studio when I was working at WRCN, and we were doing a 24-hour telethon for a charity called Angela's House that helps medically fragile children.
Yes.
And it was my first year at WRCN. We just booked this telethon. We were going to go from 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. the next day, and we had to fill time. And Mick Foley had a Facebook page, and I just wrote on the wall, hey, Mick, my name's Brian Orlando from WRCN. We would love to have you as a guest. And within minutes, he wrote back, count me in, Orlando. I'll be there from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. And I looked at Bill, and I'm like, there's no way this is really Mick Foley. There's no way. I just found Mick Foley on Facebook, and sure enough, 10:45 rolls around. This kid comes up. He goes, there's a minivan outside, and this giant dude hobbling around out there. And I go flying down, and sure enough, there's Mick Foley. And he comes up, and again, we had 24 hours to kill. And from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., he told stories about the Von Erichs, about wrestling in Texas, about how they wanted him to use the name Cactus Jack Manson at the time and how uncomfortable he was with it. And I sat there and I got the education of a lifetime about what it was like to be a wrestler in the 80s and 90s, and in education and what it does to your body, because he was in some rough shape.
Yeah, he is still in rough shape, yeah.
And, but, it put all his kids through college, and it gave his family a hell of a life. And he will tell you that he doesn't regret any of it, or at least he did back then. And I mean, I couldn't be more thankful for those 3 hours, but that was an experience. Anything that I wanted to learn from any wrestler, I learned from Mick that day.
Oh, it was either Mick Foley or Jim Cornette would be a guy who I wanted to just sit down and listen to them tell stories. Now, Corny, in his God honest defense, would get me canned off the air in no time. Because that man swears like a sailor.
Political. Like, I've never seen anyone string together what it was like to work a scaffold match with the Road Warriors into how bad he hates Donald Trump faster than it's like, well, that was impressive because the second was legit. But that's not what we're here for, buddy. I interviewed Jim Cornette with Bill Apter. That was a lot of fun.
Really? You met Corny?
I met most of those guys. One of my obsessions growing up, and probably one of the biggest reasons why I'm still here, is the Legends of World Class Championship Wrestling on ESPN at 4 o'clock. Like,
wow,
wrestling on every day. And I mean, I was bullied in school and I was bullied in the streets, but every day at 4 p.m., I knew I had 1 hour. My grandmother would watch it with me, where the whole world can go to hell because I had wrestling. And
there you go.
It was the Von Erichs, and it was Jim Cornette, and it was Bruiser Brody and Abdullah the Butcher and the Batten Twins and Al Madrill and
the Midnight Express.
Midnight Express. Well, the Fantastics were the world-class version of the Midnight Express, and the Freebirds, and it was just something. So I got to meet a bunch of those guys. We did a wrestling convention in Queens near LaGuardia Airport. And there were all these massive wrestlers, these huge names, the ECW guys, the NWA guys, the WWF guys. And I had a press pass, and they said, okay, who do you want to interview? You know, we're here a few minutes early, anybody that you want. And I looked, and there's Bill Mercer, who at the time had to be 89 years old, but the voice of World Class Championship Wrestling. I couldn't hear what they said because I just like ran to the table. This poor man must have thought that I was there to kill him. And I sit down and I'm like, Mr. Mercer, I'm a line of 94.3 Sharp. And he's just like, okay, son, so you want to do an interview? And I'm like, yes, sir.
That is awesome. You marked out immediately. You're like, holy crap.
You know, I remember him saying, you know, during the interview, you must have been young. And I said, well, sir, I'm 36. So I was, 8 then. And at the end of the interview, he says, all you kids that watched this back then, you're all grown up now. And I still have it on tape. I'll never forget that. It's like,
wow.
At least, and I'm sure he got it a million times, but I got to show him the impact he had on me, and that was awesome.
That is cool. You mentioned earlier that you dealt with a lot of bullying in the past. I mean, we all did. Yeah. Not shortchanging that at all. I mean, that they say that our darkest times in our life shape us into who we are today. Would you be able to tell some stories about that time period, or is it like, I really don't care?
No, I mean, look, my mother did her best, but we didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have, I went to school in sweatpants. I was called a scrub. I was from a very unconventional household. There was always screaming and fighting, and it was, you knew my house from blocks away. So it led to a lot of bullying and teasing, and I was overweight. And there were things that I had to get me through it. Music was one of them. Wrestling was the other. And even now, the Mets, oh God, it was pain and heartbreak, and that's all of the story. But even now, I have these things to remind me that no matter how dark it was back then, it wasn't always so dark. I did have fond memories. I did have things to live for. I did have things to look forward to. And when I see videos of Kerry and Kevin Von Erich, when I hear we built this city on rock and roll by Starship, I'm reminded that I had plenty of good times as well, because it's very easy to be angry. It's hard to be.
Yeah, big time. It's hard to be happy. It's easy to be upset.
Yep.
It really is. And people call it toxic positivity, whatever. I don't believe that exists. Personally, I think that's the dumbest phrase you can possibly make is toxic positivity. I'm a firm believer of there is a bright side to almost everything.
Look, gratitude is a big part of the world I'm in now with psychic mediumship and tarot cards and all of that stuff. And there's plenty of times when I want to slap somebody that's like, oh, you got to have gratitude. Hey, I'm bleeding to death out into the road right now. Oh, be grateful for it. Shut up. But, at the same time, sometimes words just become background noise. But at the same time, there are lessons to everything. So, maybe bleeding out in the road and almost dying kept you from an accident 2 miles down the road where you would have died. There's something to be said about understanding why you are where you are.
Fate's weird.
Yeah.
Fate's really weird.
I was supposed to be on the train that Colin Ferguson was on when he shot up all those people. Now, there's still no telling what car I would have been on, but I was supposed to be on that train. There's plenty of instances where I should have been places where things went horribly wrong and I wasn't, and sometimes you have to wonder why. Of all of my friends growing up, I've lost 9 friends. 9 friends passed away that I called brother or best friend. And there was a long period of time when I just walked around bitter about it and pissed off that they didn't have to deal with this life anymore, and I did. And now I'm at a point where I understand that I still have a reason to be here. And I'm grateful that I still have opportunities to make things right.
You mentioned earlier that you wrote a new book on tarot cards and the correlation of music with said tarot cards. Yeah. There she is. There she is. I had a feeling you'd bring her out one day. I mean, how'd you get into tarot cards? Because I know a few people that do tarot cards. I mean, how'd you get into that?
Begrudgingly. My mother reads tarot cards, and she's read them since she was 14, and it was never a happy memory for me. I mean, look, it paid the bills. My mom was a single mom. She used to read tarot and put food on the table, and I would always have these interruptions in my house, like people sitting in my living room because 4 would come at a time, and my mother could only read one person at a time. So I'd have all these weirdos in my house when I'm just trying to watch wrestling or play with my G.I. Joes, and it's like, oh, your mother, she's wonderful. It's like, you should try her pot roast, buddy. And I just rejected it for many reasons. My mom hid behind tarot a lot too. And I always felt that there were times when I needed her to be a mom, and instead she was Psychic Diane. Hey, Mom, what do you think of this girl? Let's see what the cards say. No, just talk to her. But there came a time, and it was 2019. I mentioned I had gotten out of that divorce, and at the end of the year, my grandmother passed away, who was probably one of the most impactful people in my life. And it was around that time that, I don't know, things just started to happen. I was already doing a podcast with psychic medium Jeffrey Wands for a few years, and I would talk to these people on the phone, and there were some interesting characters there, but I never really absorbed it. And then my grandmother passing at the end of 2019 into 2020, I started to feel a little bit more, and I thought I was just going through the mourning of my grandmother, but I'm picking up all this energy. And then one day I feel completely lost. I felt useless, worthless, and I couldn't understand why. Like, everything in life was going pretty well, but I feel like I can't amount to crap. And we had a Zoom call with Kevin from Candlebox. Rob Rush and I from 94.3 The Shark did this thing, since there were no concerts at the time, where we gave Zoom keys out as prizes, and you could meet your favorite bands, and one of them was
That's cool.
I'm like, why am I so depressed? I'm about to talk to one of my best friends, my favorite bands. I couldn't figure it out. And like, I literally started to cry. I'm like, maybe I'm going through my changes. I don't know. All of a sudden, my computer stops working. So I ran next door to my landlord and I said, I need your computer. I don't know what's going on. Before I could say another word, she breaks down hysterically crying. I said, what's going on? She goes, I just got turned down for a job. I feel worthless. And the second she said that, everything started to click, like almost immediately. I'm like, I was feeling her. She lived next door. Like, I was feeling her energy. And then she starts to talk. And everything that she's saying to me, I said in my head. So after the interview, I called up my mother. I said, look, this is going to sound weird, but I need to come down and I need to get a deck of tarot cards. And she listened, and I thought she was going to say, I told you so, almost immediately. She waited a few minutes, which was nice of her. And I went down and I got the cards, and that was the start of my journey. But she would explain things in a very traditional manner, and I couldn't grasp that. So as she talked, I started to think of songs to sort of help me associate them. And that's when I decided that I was going to set up my own definitions using music. And that's what the book is about. It's using your own experiences with your own songs to help you understand what each card means.
Can you tell us some?
Yeah, I mean, I give you my example.
Please.
Of my cards, and then I challenge you to do the same. All right, so let's see. This is, I want to do the minor arcana only because in the major arcana, they're very long. All right, so these are the cups. We'll do, okay, here. So the 3 of cups. This is what I write. I write, who are the friends that you trust to know where the bodies are buried? When you're asked about magical memories, who is in that story every time? When you talk about getting over a really rough time, who do you gush over helping you through it all? And then the song to help you understand is Here's to Us by Hailstorm. And it says, the celebration in this song seems to be a nod to being each other's ride or die. Lizzie Hale sings about wanting to toast someone, not because she's had a really rough couple of days, but to honor the person who's still standing there when she finally gets to the end of the week. It's implied that not much needs to be said between her and whoever she's singing to. Just one look from the other person is enough to know that that's all that's needed for the evening. If no one else can hang in this hour-long conversation, which consists of nothing more than a sideways glance, sonic smirks, eye rolls, and giggles, then they can F off. This is personal.
Wow. That's
So,
crazy.
and when you hear that song, Here's to Us, here's to, I'm trying to relay the lyrics without cursing, but she's like, because the last few nights have kicked my ass, so let's wish them well and tell them all to go F themselves. Here's to us. And it's like, that's the kind of thing that the 3 of Cups is to me. It's not just friends. It's those friends that will be there, run in during a burning fire, pull your ass out, and then laugh at you for being in that fire in the first place.
I love that. That's great.
So like, you have your own friends that you can associate that with. And with those friends come songs. So if I were to tell you, hey, Dan, what does the 3 of Cups mean to you? It would be a song with those friends in your life. And it wouldn't be Here's to Us. It might be a different song. And that's how you would associate the 3 of Cups. And that's how I teach all 78 cards in this book.
That's great. That's wow. That's wild. I mean, what's some tips and tricks you can give to people? If someone who's going to get into tarot card readings, or someone who's going to get into tarot cards in association with music in that regard, what's some tips and tricks you can give for those people?
Well, the first trick is find a deck of cards that speaks to you. A lot of people will recommend the Rider-Waite deck, which is a very good first deck, and almost every tarot card deck that's put out there is based off of the Rider-Waite deck, which came out in 1908. But if the images on the cards start to make you think that's the deck for you. If you're staring at the cards and go, what the hell am I looking at? Find another deck. Also, the tarot cards are just a tool. The intuition is inside of you. There's no way that some of these tarot card readers who are ultra talented get all of these messages for you based on a deck of cards that cost $19.99. Like, you mean to tell me that this intuitive guidance that is groundbreaking and revolutionary and soul cleansing for you comes from a deck of cards that's $20 at the local store down the block? The cards are a tool. They're a portal for your intuition, and all of us have it, and not every one of us want to use it or are responsible enough to use it, but they're a tool to help you make better decisions. Now, you always hear the association of tarot cards and fortune telling. What's my future? What do you have for me? What's going to happen? There is no future. There are only possibilities. So when you start to do tarot, you cannot, under any circumstances, believe or get anyone to believe that you're going to tell them what's in their future. You could make educated decisions based on things that they tell you along with the cards that are in front of you. But never underestimate a human being's ability to F things up.
Yup. Yup.
You know, and I have people that ask me for multiple readings or you know, repeat readings. And then you sit down and you find out that you're telling them the same thing. And then you say, well, wait a minute. Did you do what we talked about here? No. Did you do what we talked about here? No. Then why do you think nothing's changed at work? Then why do you think nothing's changed in your relationship? The whole point of a reading, whether it's a psychic mediumship reading or a tarot card reading, is to help you make better decisions. I teach a psychic medium student, and she's awesome. But the first thing I said to her was, what is your role as a psychic medium, as a tarot card reader? And she says, to bring closure to people. And that is, it's a possibility if that's what the person wants to do, but closure means something different to every single person. I can give you some advice, some messages from, from deceased loved ones, some messages from spirit guides that you need to hear from. That doesn't mean that you're going to get closure from it, because you still have to believe in the messages, you have to follow through with the messages, and you have to absorb what's being said. And if you nod your head and go, yeah, you're right, and then continue to live your life the way you are living it, you're not going to get closure. Closure comes when you're ready to accept it. And that doesn't come from me, you, or anybody else. That comes from when you're ready to believe that it's time to move on.
My therapist says I think too hard when it comes to a lot of things. Yeah, we all do. We all do. But the one thing I've been trying to tell people is, like, what you did back then isn't who you are now.
Right.
Unless you did something by godly stupid, like you killed someone in a car crash or whatever. It's like, you know what I mean? But like, unless there's something drastic in that regard, what you did back then isn't who you are today. You can accept it and you can move forward.
But even when you do something that horrible, I mean, there are prisoners that go around to schools talking to kids to try to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes they did. Like, you still have the ability, even through the most tragic of mistakes, to help others through them.
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
As a psychic medium, as a tarot card reader, there are horrible mistakes that I've made in my life that come up that allow me to realize what I need to tell to what I need somebody to hear, because they're there for similar reasons. You know, when I start to think about my ex-wife, I realize that they're going through a separation or contemplating one, or things like that. So even the most tragic of mistakes can be used in some capacity for good.
As fuel.
Yeah, as fuel. Exactly.
Yeah, as fuel. I know someone who this was a while ago, and we haven't talked in a few years now, but they went through a really nasty breakup, and they were trashing their significant other, trashing this, trashing that. And one of the brutally honest questions I asked them is, what'd you do? Because it's not all them. It's also partially you as well.
We live in this world where it's not okay to ask those things anymore. And again, just because you ask somebody what they did doesn't immediately shift all of the blame to them. You're just trying to get an idea as to what happened so that
Correct.
I can help you recognize when something's going to go wrong next time.
Yeah.
And look, there's been horrendous incidents, violence and crime, and you say, okay, well, what happened? What do you mean what happened? No, I just want to know what happened so we can figure out how to make sure this never happens again. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just blanket statements like, hey, what happened? What'd you do? Like, not a, hey, you're the reason to blame here.
Right. Let's just figure out how to make sure, if we can, that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Dave Chappelle had a great skit on that. He had a great bit on that some time ago. And he refers himself as the victim blamer. And one of the jokes was, Rihanna and Chris Brown.
Yep.
And he goes, Dave, Chris Brown just beat up Rihanna. And he goes, well, what'd she do? Now, hindsight being what it is, super dark and super messed up. But when you think about it in proper context, it goes, okay, hey, my significant other, is threatening to divorce me. I go, what'd you do to get to that point? Or what did you both do to get to that point? There are two sides of the same coin, is the whole meaning of this phrase. It's not just, hey, he did this, or she did this, or they did that. It's like, no, all around the big picture here. Two sides of one coin. And it's very hard for people to understand that because they're quick to assume.
Look, it goes without saying, violence is never okay. Domestic violence is never okay.
No, God, no.
Murder is never okay. Robbing someone is never okay. But if I have a friend who tells me that he got mugged of, $2,000 in the middle of the street, I'm going to ask him why he had $2,000 on him in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And then you'll find out, oh, well, it was, I was meeting somebody to buy this too good to be true race car in the middle of the night. I'm like, okay, well, now we find the problem.
Yeah.
In a situation you didn't need to be in.
Exactly. And it seems that people just don't get that.
But we don't talk anymore. We don't have conversations about things. You say something, you're labeled and painted, and it's like we used to talk about uncomfortable things, and that's how you get new ideas.
Yeah.
Out
like
of
you and I
comes something new.
Like what you and I are doing right now. We're having a conversation. We talked about Blue Point Long Island. Mm-hmm. We talked about music. We talked about concerts. We talked about the Choose Song Challenge, tarot card readings, the whole nine. And we could sit here and have great ideas about, hey, I went to Blue Point the other day to go get a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich from the Firehouse Deli on Blue Point Avenue. And then later that night, I went to Kavanaugh's right up the road.
Yeah. Kavanaugh's still in business. Well, listen, Dan, I actually have to run because I have a reading that I have to do in a little bit.
I got you, my man.
You and I could talk. I didn't even realize that it's been an hour. We could talk to you for another hour. Maybe one day we'll do it again.
Of course, my friend. With that being said, where can they find you, Brian?
So my Instagram handle is the easiest way, Orlando0616. If you want to book a reading or if you want to come to a tarot card class, Orlando0616. If you want 5 hours of rock and roll and a little bit of mindlessness, then, 94.3 The Shark on the app, 94.3theshark.com, or if you're here on Long Island, 94.3 The Shark on the radio.
That being said, from 94.3 The Shark and Brian Orlando, My name is Dan Cruz. I'm coming to you from the beaches of lovely Long Island, New York, and we'll see you all in this life and most certainly the next one. Cheers, everyone. Have a good night.